Welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch and the networking. It's just wonderful to be in these rooms and hear all the conversation going on and seeing people pop around between tables and the confusion around masks and elbows and kicking feet together and all these things. It's just great to be back. So thank you all for coming back in the room. I'm sure that we will have people popping in and out over the coming hour. And there is, of course, the parallel track in the Qual 360 event. So it is my pleasure to introduce initially Salim, who's going to be talking to us to build upon what we saw just before the break around communities and pop-up communities in the world of organic food. And then following that, we'll have Florian also sharing. And so, yeah, a great start, hopefully, and a big warm welcome to Salim.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks first for being there. Actually, I didn't realize how big my face is on the slide, so I go to the next one. So thanks for being there. I have to say I was a bit jealous of the program for the people in the other room with all the storytelling about Hollywood and etc. So I was like, well, I'm going to speak about communities after lunch, you know, when the level of energy is not the highest of the day. So thanks for being there and attentive. So before I start, just a few words about me. I'm responsible for consumer and market insights at global level at Ecotone. Ecotone, we operate in the food industry, and most specifically on healthy food. About, I think, 80% of the product that we sell are organic. And when they're not, they're at least healthy. And for some, if there are French people in the room, probably the brand Bjorg is familiar to you, so it's one of our brands. And we have leading position on this healthy food market across Europe. Before that, I worked in agency side, big guys, middle-sized companies that you see here, for about 10 years, and I would say that it's at the end of these 10 years that I started to hear the word community popping up around me. But it was more about long-term community management. You know, how you create a group of consumers and you nurture that along the way for 1 year or maybe more, and you build on that, but not necessarily pop-up communities like we're going to discuss today. And before I joined Ecotone, I was CMI partner at Ferrero, food industry, still not the same product exactly than the one we sell today, but still FMCG and food. And now since last year and a half, I would say, right in the middle of the COVID crisis, I joined Ecotone at this position. So it's important for you that, up front, I tell you that I'm going to discuss this topic, of course, from an industrial stakeholders' point of view rather than from, more technical agency side, etc. So I'll try to build a slide to, let's say, make the point of view on, what we can gain from it from an industrial aspect, and probably some of you among market research agencies actually know better than I the topic and knows more the possibilities and the technical possibilities. Maybe it has been said, by the way, earlier in the day. But actually that doesn't matter. This is just the basic principles on, what we can gain from that, and we can leverage that I'm here to try to convey, okay? So maybe, a few words on the basics. Just community, I think that resonates to pretty much everyone here. But pop-up community, what is it? So obviously, online plays a huge part of it. But let me just state that to me, and the way I see it, it's not only online. We need to benefit from the fact that people are mobile, and actually online is where they go to on the platform to respond to questions and interact with others, respondents, and us. But there can be other touch points to consumers. if you're a retailer, maybe you would like to have these people going into your stores. Maybe, I don't know, if you work in automotive, then you want people to then after come to the car shop and try your car, and etc. So I would say please think about communities in a more broader way and the other touch points. They will need to go online to respond. This is where the basic part of the interactions will be, but not only. Mainly qual, and I like personally to introduce sometimes some small quantitative modules, some very short polls, because I think it's of course, with all the warnings that we know that we're not going to have many respondents, it's not going to be a solid quant. At least, it brings the dynamism in the conversation and allows people to then pronounce themselves. I think it's good for the interactions. To me, it's not only a qual tool, it's qual and quant also, to some extent. Of course, that will not be a solid and robust quant. It's bigger than traditional focus groups. I mean, at least personally, I always did that over 20, 30, 40 people. So bigger than groups, and also it's quick to set up. It's not long-lasting. I think that's the main difference between traditional communities. I mean, these communities are there for a real purpose, and that purpose will last a few days, and then after this will be done. That being said, I think it's also interesting that us, as industrial, we have in mind that based on what consumers are bringing, then we are going to work on our concepts, our products, etc. Then I'm personally quite fan of having a lock-up phase with the consumers, after developing and after the innovation process, to re-interview some of the participants to say, here guys, this is what we did, and we'd like to get your thoughts on the way we worked based on what you shared. So this is how we describe a pop-up community, mainly online, mostly qual, but not only, and a quick and agile tool. And yeah, I think one part also, for those of you that never did that in the past, something that was striking to me, and let's say more playful than traditional qual, is that it's actually going to be sequenced a different way than traditional qual, where you will have 2 hours in interviews. If you have 6 days, that can be sequenced, day 1, day 2, day 3, etc. And that also is nice for us to know how we're going to interact with the people to keep the dynamism along the way. I think this is what it's requested more than traditional qual with these tools. So why we want to use pop-up communities for a start? I think it's a good question to answer. So we'll share my personal feedback on that. I think the first aspect is definitely the COVID. I didn't do that in my former job because we were a very big fan of offline. I heard people this morning saying that there are all these principles before COVID that you needed to physically see people, watch their reactions, etc. But then COVID arrived, and then you can no longer get 10 people into a room locked, and etc. So we needed to still investigate. So I think the COVID definitely accelerated this methodology, and personally, this is where I arrived on that, and my agencies called me to say, Selim, you need to try it. Personally, I think for those of you that are using usage and attitude surveys, this is absolutely a great tool for doing a preliminary qualitative phase before you go into a traditional UNA. Reason is that the platform allows you to get collective feedbacks. So, how people interact with each other's and individual interactions. When you're doing UNA, you need to have the individual beliefs and individual expectations of people. Well, you cannot do that when you have a focus group, obviously, because you're not going to say to the rest of the people, please leave the room and let me with let me talk to this guy especially. So it's not feasible offline. I think this is a great features in the pop-up communities that we can have these collective and individual interactions that people are really open to that and ready to that. And this is a personal comment. I've always had this feeling, watching a traditional qual, that this is not really user-friendly. This is not really warm. This is, personally, I think I've been attending to hundreds and hundreds of qual in my career, whether it's client size or agency size, but I always felt like there was this laboratory context, and people are a lot about the context. In fact, how you're gonna speak, how you're gonna, tell the truth and the truthful insights about you. The contracts play a large role. I personally think that us at Ecotone, we do food products, so people are either consuming or cooking with our products. And being in their own kitchen makes probably more sense than being there at 7 o'clock in the evening in a room like that to discuss with other people. So this is also a reason why I switched many researches to pop-up communities because of that. So now, again, to my perceptions, but I'm happy after the talk to have your thoughts, how to make it successful. From my experience, it really relies on a few principles. First thing is that starting from the principle that you will not be in physical contact with people, you definitely need to be 100% sure that you have the right people on board. Having the right people on board, to me, is not only about the demographics and make sure that that matches the target, that your brand, etc. Is actually being sure that the people you interview about a certain category, a certain brand, they really know what they're talking about. I have an example. We did one of those on dark chocolate. So in France, dark chocolate is very popular, but with high percentages of cocoa. Actually, it's not everyone that can answer that. You need to be very selective on the people that you recruit to talk about that. And we had plenty of questions to ask them. But you need to make sure that they're not just the traditional buyers of, whatever Milka brand and everyone, they could, take and no offense to Milka, and they can, take a dark chocolate. You need to have people that really know what is 80% of cocoa, how it really tastes, what they really look for. So I personally take some time and quite a significant amount of time to make sure that the screening part is absolutely right, introducing some tricks to, showing some packagings, introducing some that are not part of the products that we sell, etc., to make sure that they are really eligible to that. Because all the accuracy of what you're going to have in terms of insight depend on that. Second aspect to me that is absolutely essential is if you really want people to commit and involve into the community, even if it's not lasting more than 5 or 6 days, then at some point they need to forget, that they're doing this exercise, and they need to be put in topic-related, I call it topic-related environment. So if it's about chocolate, or if it's about, I don't know, high technology or whatever, then your community, the platform should be about that. The codes, the way you navigate, I mean, even to the very, small details, they must be about that so that, again, like the kitchen example, they are into the environment of what is at stake and not just themselves in front of a computer answering. So it's about this job, to make it look nice and customized so that they will not totally forget, that this is a research exercise and just think that they're here to talk about chocolate, for example. And of course, you need to interact, correct, rephrase, be agile, etc. I say that, again, from a client perspective and not from an agency perspective, because I think that a mistake that can be easily done is thinking that this is the agency's work to actually do that, follow the exchanges and now knows when to interact. But I think this is not correct. I think this is totally our job because I remember one very basic question that a former boss of mine in my previous company, Feo, asked me and asked us in a team meeting. And her first question when she arrived at the company was, how do you meet with consumers? I remember, this is a simple question. So there was CMI team, 20% in a room, how do you meet with consumers? And actually we were struggling to answer because, we know that do it ethno takes some time, it's, bless you, it's actually time spent not answering emails, not working on your day-to-day business as usual, etc. Spending time with consumers can be time-consuming, but here it's an opportunity. So I think that would be a mistake just to, take a step backward and let only the agency deal with that, because this is an opportunity for us to actually meet with consumers. I totally believe that's been said this morning that, these technical barriers actually are not, people. I can see people like in the subway in Paris just filming themselves, doing some FaceTime, etc. Well, actually, it shows that they have some let go with the tools that allows to actually be really in contact with our consumers. So let's use it and not be in an old way of doing things. Then I think also success of the tool really has to do with what is happening around. If you want to make the best out of the tool, then you need to think about everything that is around the consumers. And that can be, people's kids, the stores that they go to, actually their kitchen, open the fridge, open the drawers, show us what you have here, take us to your world. And, as much as you take time to understand your consumers and understand, their way of behaving and of living, then you understand that all things are connected. Like, for example, we have a business within the breakfast cereals, and if you understand this business, you understand that the family part of it is absolutely crucial because the product is going to be consumed by, probably many other people than just, your kids if it was bought for your kids, and etc. So if you just stick to a traditional researches, I think you miss the beauty of the tool that is, using everything around, all the environment and all the people around to really truthfully understand the human insights behind. So some good concrete ideas, I think they're good because tried it and had some insights after, but maybe they will not be necessarily good for you. I think, especially I'm talking to people around in the FMCG sector, then I think that needs to be supported with some shopping mission, Let's not forget that at the end of the day, we need people to go in stores and buy our products. So if they are just answering about our products, but they don't actually go in stores, be facing the shelves, etc., again, we're losing a part of the picture. So can be, for example, an example of an animation guide can be day one, okay, let's get to know each other. Day two, let's talk about chocolate. And now day three, go into shops. Okay, go into shops, buy your favorite chocolate bread, buy a competitor, and then let's come back and share your thoughts. How was it? Painful, easy? Were you surprised to find our products, in this area, in this shelf, etc.? Tell us why. This is part of the activity. Photo safaris, but that goes together. I think, personally, when a consumer is in a community and is answering about how it was to consume a biscuits or whatever product, I'd like to see it, like even on the spot, how it's like. Just film yourself, take pictures. If you're telling me that, the filling of the biscuits is just too small or too big or too sugary, then just show us how it feels, and then let's discuss that. So I think, everyone has smartphones, possibility to take pictures and films. Let's make the usage of it. Cooking mission. Again, an example. We did at Ecotone one investigation on part of a business in France that is about culinary aids. Okay, so organic culinary aids, not cow milk based, but still. So what we did is, rather than just asking questions about that, we had one day that was a cooking day, because these products you're gonna use them to cook actually, and what matters to you is, at the end, is your meal going to be a success or not? Is it going to be disgusting because just smells not good? Is it going to be creamy enough? Is the texture going to be the one you like, etc.? So they had a cooking day, and actually it was very fun for the consumers. And then after, they could take pictures of the meal and then share. And again, usage of what's around. Share, like people that I had from dinner. How do they feel? Assuming they are polite enough to, answer us, but if it's disgusting, hide it a bit. But, just say, concrete ideas, testimonials, stories, social networks. Again, I truly believe that we need to make our consumers act the way they act in real life. So if your target is a big fan of stories, like using the social networks, then why not? Why not doing that? I think as long as it matches their behavior, it's fine. Other advantages, I think, also from what I saw versus traditional qual, I think it allows our shy consumers to actually speak, express themselves. It's not always easy, in a group, and I think there are qual people in the room. You probably know that. You have someone with a big mouth that is, answering everything and taking a lot of spaces, etc. We've all seen that. It's, even if the moderator is good and is there and say, okay, thank you for that, but I want to hear from her, it's still a pressure on the shoulder of, a shy person. This is very basic, but here, they don't have to face this, This is one also a very, it's a game-changing aspect from the offline to the online, that actually it allows everyone to express. Also allows sensitive topic to be covered. And I say sensitive in the sense that, not easy to express. And also, I think some being in the organic and ethics food industry, some topics can be politically correct, when people are interviewed. And then in reality, once they have the anonymity of being online, they can really tell what they actually think. Consuming in context, answering in context, definitely, we talked about that. And I think, again, it's an opportunity to meet with your consumers. It's an opportunity to actually watch them, maybe add some ethno to your community, if that is a feature that you can do. I think definitely is a momentum there. I have 3 golden rules there, again, from experience, to be debated. I think what you need to do definitely is being honest and straightforward with your consumers, because what they're giving you is their thoughts, but first is their time. Actually, everyone's time is precious. No one likes to spend time, dedicate time to something that, either doesn't really matter or is not really well thought or whatever. So what you need to do is definitely be straightforward to them and let them know what is going to happen. Okay, so guys, we're going to have 4 days together. Day 1, we're going to do that. Day 2, we're going to do that. 3 and 4, etc. Okay, so that they know what they're going to do and what they will have to do. That doesn't prevent from being creative. Again, I think the beauty of the tool is having this frame, being very clear on that, but also still maintain the dynamism and the creativity and bounce on what they're saying. The more you give, the more you get, and I really believe that. I believe that just asking questions is one thing, and giving consumers, today, 2021, nearly 2022, with the consumers, the fact that we all behave in a horizontal way. We need our consumers. In some way, they need us. We need them. So we need to give them, tell them, we heard what you said. That matters to us. Look at what we did in the past. It can be an example. Okay, you said that whatever reason, these ingredients matters to you. Okay, but look, 2 years ago, we tried something. Didn't really work out. What do you think of that? What did we miss? And having this conversation with consumers really, in terms of quality of insights, is totally changed. And then, of course, let's try it. You never know, until you try, how successful it's going to be within your companies. That's it.
Thank you, Salim. Any question? Yeah, great.
Thank you very much. Very interesting insights. Thank you. Yeah. Even if I'm not from consumer goods industry, my question is, why did you decide against the long-term community and towards the pop-up communities?
Okay, one very, very honest response. We didn't have the money for a long-term community. I had one in my previous company, okay?
But it would also make sense here, I think.
Definitely. I think the same rules even to a bigger extent, because you have like a long-term community. So the thing, when you have a pop-up community, you know that basically you more have to make all that you're wondering fit into only 4 or 5 days. Here's the challenge. And I think for the long-term community, it's kind of the opposite. So you need to feed this community for 1 year or even more. So you need to have many, many things to tell them, because the worst thing that can happen for a long term is that at some moment you don't have anything to interact.
We have a long-term community.
Okay.
And we have lots and lots of topics from Deutsche Bahn, which is the German railways company.
Uh-huh.
But I understand that it also depends on the money, but good luck for the future for that, maybe.
No, but it's a matter, of course, of money, but it's also, again, I think before you jump into this exercise, let's say community, short, long, big, or whatever, I think the first job that we need to do is to size what we actually want to learn and what we can give, okay? If we don't do that, then we can, fail in the situation that, this is either too big for me or too, I'm frustrated because I have more to ask and I just actually don't have enough time to interact.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Different question. Liked it a lot, really interesting. Thank you.
I can hear you from there.
I know.
Yeah.
But the question, what I liked a lot was the central location versus kitchen, basically. And I mean, coming from Nestle, I don't do a lot of product research, but I feel you. Then how do you get 4, 5 consumers, housewives, men, you talked about several days, to basically be at home with you and do those in-home co-creation groups, not at a central location?
So when I was, referring to, there are two things, because when I was referring to a realistic context, one thing was, very basic, that they can be in the room where either they cook or they do their laundry or whatever, they go into that place and they are into that place when answering the questions. That's one part. Then after, I think that for us, our business, maybe it's trickier, but they can make sense, for example, for a retailer. Again, if you're selling products than you're selling to the end consumers, then you're wondering about the stores and or the shelves or whatever. Then it's kind of easy that they could go into their Carrefour nearby and have an experience there, and then come back and tell them. To this aspect, we had one community where we wanted people actually to respond in the shelf. Okay, we wanted them to go in stores. Okay, to be in the biscuit shelves, grab their phone, and then interact with us. Actually, when we wanted to do that, we had some restrictions because of COVID. And like at that moment in France, the retailers didn't want consumers to stay too much, static in a position. And I think for us, that could be a good exercise to do. Not easy to get them in a central aspect all together to interact, but probably easier to get them in the place where they actually shop and the place they actually consume our products.
That's great. Thank you very much, Selim.
You're welcome. You're welcome.